Look at Rory's action. We're going to start with the sort of how he sets up, how he takes it away, and then we'll have a look at the top, transition, through impact, and then how he finishes. So, first things first, address, all the things you'd expect from a world-class player, isn't it? Nice, tall, somewhat tall, athletic posture, pretty straight back, a little bit of knee flex. He does have a little bit more space between his hands and hips than a lot of good players will have, but that also is sort of created by being a shorter player. As you get taller, this gap here generally appears to be a bit smaller. Face on, we're going to see some cool stuff happening here. He definitely does stack himself up a lot more on that trail side at address than a lot of club players do. And then to get off the club off the ground, this is something not a lot of people ever really notice, unfortunately, with Rory. But if you just zoom, we're just going to zoom in here and watch how he gets the club off the ground. It's pretty interesting. So if we get there, let's get back out of there, coach. Let's get back there, right at the start. We're just going to zoom in and how he actually gets the club off the ground. So he actually does a little wee hover move. Gets the club hovering off. Club gets stationary. Look at it from down the line. Tiny little hover there, so he just gets the club off the ground. Now what this allows him to do is not only does two things, it allows him to shift even more into the trail side. So now that you know that that's going to be happening, we're going to draw a little line down the trail leg here. And you can actually see here from his address to that shift, he gets even a little bit more into his trail side. So he gets even more pressure on the back foot. Instead of calling it trail side, it just gets into that trail, into that back foot. The other kicker that it does is once you get the club off the ground, you don't run into all those issues of club getting behind you and too wristy and all those kind of niggly things. So he's shifted more to his trail side to get that club off the ground. And then he comes to a full halt. And then from there, because he's got the club off the ground already, it's really easy to have this beautiful one-piece takeaway. Because to get the club off the ground, he doesn't have to do anything with his wrists. He's really lifted it off the ground. So he gets the club, like generally all good players do, a little outside the hands, face matching, spine tilt, all those wonderful things. Doesn't flare it open or anything silly. It's just a really good spot. And if you look at it from face on here, boom, tons of width, and yes, the guy does like to move off the golf ball or get into that trail side, load it early, and get to halfway back. I wonder how synced up these two, but we'll get it halfway back. And at this point here, we'll say that's about left arm parallel, shall we? It's a little tricky with this particular camera angle. You're going to see the club shaft will be pointed, pretty much where most good players have it, just inside that golf ball. Some will have it a little bit more vertical, some will have it like Adam Scott, straight at the golf ball. Very few at this point we will see it being outside the golf ball, but generally most of the best players will hang out there. We even get the odd one like Matt Wolf, who will have it all the way behind the feet, the same as his spine. He's certainly going to be a fun one to have a look at. Then from there, and we'll get their face on because we can certainly see the pressure shift. So if we get another line here, say that's at that point there, and we'll change colours up here a little bit, get a line here. And you can see here he's certainly fully loaded into his trail side at this point. I would quite happily say he has a ton of pressure in that right side. Now as he finishes his backswing, he does some pretty cool stuff. We're going to see the hips rotating and moving forward, the pressure loading starting to move lead side. So as this lead arm starts to work up, his weight is going to start working into the left side. Now this is super important. Most players think that they only move their weight at the top. No siree. The pressure starts moving, as you can see here, as the backswing is completed, the pressure starts shifting. And by the time the club has finally, finally, you can say it's stopped moving to the target, stopped moving that way, the shaft, you can see how much his hip has moved forward. His trail hip has moved a ton forward. And his left hip's also travelled a fair distance. So if we go left arm parallel, get rid of all those lines, that's where his left hip is. By the time he gets to that top position, you can see here the trail hip's moved a ton, left hip's moved a ton. He's in position now. he's recentered, still has lots of secondary spine tilt in a great spot. From down the line, see how it looks here. Don't see anywhere near as much of it. You can see how his hip angles and knee flex increase as he finishes that backswing, but he's certainly loading down and forward into the ground and getting that club able behind him, because he has that massive late turn that really gives his hands behind him, which is great for creating a high rip draw. Makes it very hard for him to hit that low cut, but makes it very easy to absolutely rip it. Then once he's done all this super counter rotation, and when I say counter rotation is that way. Come on, you can do a better angle on that, right? Rotation is that way, counter rotation is that way. So he's counter rotated a ton to finish that backswing. By the time he then comes back down to left arm parallel on the downswing, we can see here shoulders are still super nice and closed. They pointed way out over here somewhere. Shaft is now shallowed out and the hands have moved down considerably from where they were on the way back, haven't they? Shaft only, I say shaft barely shallows out. If anything, it's the same angle, but the hand path certainly gets way more inside, which creates problems and also helps him hit high rip draws. You know, it's one of those things. It's a caveat. You can't have it all, but closed, square up to pretty much at that point. And pressure-wise, he's certainly got at least 80 to 90% of his pressure already on that lead side at this point. And get down here into the delivery position. He's pretty good at this point. His hips are rotating so fast. Unfortunately, I haven't got quite enough frames on this one here to probably see the gap between those two. Let's clear this all out. This is a great spot, isn't it? Shoulders straight down the target line, hips a touch open, face square, lead wrist square. Man, this is good stuff right here. Heels come off the ground, pressure certainly moves firm. Well, you could say he's standing up against a firm left side, but the reality is his left hip's disappearing up and left. A couple more frames off into, let's say that's pretty much impact there, one could say. Impact fantastic, and it just all the right angles. Trail arm is underneath the lead arm. Shaft is leaning forward while still hitting up on it. Just all the dynamics you'd want to ever see. Shoulder, left arm, shoulders high. He certainly stayed in posture from where he started. Oh, a little hump to go, but not much. Just huge vertical. You can see how much he's extended through the golf ball, and that's good. It has a little bit of a mini Scotty Scheffler if you look at it too. I mean, Rory's leg action is so cool. The more you just look into it, and I suggest looking into it, the more you check out what Rory's legs are doing, the more interesting it gets. And we better talk about that lead foot too, but you see here this foot is going to drag a little bit, just this tiny little drag back that way, which helps him basically stay in posture, for the lack of a better term, so it works that way. Tiger does the same thing as a ton. Greg Norman did the same thing as a ton of great players that do that. As you can see there, as he's going that way, you actually see his lead foot rotate the other way. And on that foot thing, while we've got you here, while we're talking about it, if we take a look at that address, oh, that's too much. That address angle there, if that's his Nikes, as he goes back, you're going to see as he starts, or as he gets this massive counter rotation, it's so violent and so fast, he actually pushes, his left heel comes off the ground in that move. You see here from the other side, you can see that left heel is just a touch off the ground. And it moves more closed. So now you can actually clearly see the shoe has moved more closed. Again, we'll zoom in on this one. It's well worth being aware of. Again, like I strongly recommend spend some time checking this guy's footwork out. It's phenomenal. So there, in transition, literally comes off the ground, not at the top, like as he's changing direction, comes off the ground, replants more closed. We see this from a bunch of high-speed players, like Justin James does this big time. And then through impact, it now rolls more open than where it started. Like most people will only see the finish position and they'll see the start. They'll go, oh, he just rolls it more open. A lot of punters, unfortunately, and golf commentators themselves too, we'll miss out this extremely important part where he actually gets it more closed. So it goes, understanding that has a huge effect and enables him to get into a lot of these positions here where he counter rotates. So shift, drift off, boom, post impact, fantastic, isn't it? Lovely full extension down the target line, stays in posture, all that vertical force, that trail foot sliding, as we've spoken about, going that way, pressure's going that way, straight up here, still got that nice right side bend as the club pops out just underneath the shoulder plane, face is a little rotated, but you can expect to see that when he's hitting a draw. Hands have certainly fully released, there's no holding the face off there, and then into a wonderful balanced position, which we all kind of, our generation grew up watching Tiger in that finish, and we all try to get there, don't we? He sometimes holds it for an amazingly long period of time, and I assume as he gets older we're going to see him holding it in that position for a shorter and shorter period of time. But yeah, it's a wonderful balanced finish position. So hopefully that kind of explains just about everything. Definitely the stuff when you're watching him hit balls to really zoom in on is A, how he gets that club off the ground. That's something I think everyone can try with a little wee hover just to get things started. Definitely give that a go. I think it's underestimated how important that is. And then don't be afraid to get the feeling of when you actually start to shift that weight. Even with driver, you start shifting, turning your shoulders closed and your hips closed as you start shifting forward way earlier than what you think, please. And then as that happens, if your feet are moving all over the place and they're shifting and they're drifting as it all goes, counter forces are going to start happening. We don't want to be still. It's a swing. It's got moving parts. So being aware of all that is going to be of great benefit to you. Alright, no doubt this video has probably created more questions than answers. And I cannot overestimate how cool this guy's action is. And definitely, every time you watch it in slow motion, look at those feet, check at that hover. Hopefully someone starts talking about how he actually gets to start the whole motion. He gets the club hovering off the ground. Alright, that's all from me from now. Thanks for watching.